Coming up on this edition of the Next Man Up podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network, Kenny Roda and I, Dennis Manoloff, talk about a beatdown that was administered by the San Francisco 49ers over the Cleveland Browns, 31-3, and it wasn't even that close. Kenny and I dive into what went wrong, what's going on with Baker Mayfield, OBJ, Freddie K, and other Browns who were just humiliated at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California on Monday Night Football. This is the latest episode of Next Man Up on the Press Play Podcast Network, brought to you by Chase Smith and Company. I'm co-host Dennis Manoloff. On the other side is co-host Kenny Roda, and we are tasked with trying to dissect a 31-3 beatdown by the San Francisco 49ers administered to the visiting Cleveland Browns on Monday Night Football. And by the way, 31-3 wasn't even that close. If the 49ers field goal unit was the least bit competent, it would have been maybe 9 or 10 points worse or what have you. And on top of that, the 49ers took it easy on the Browns in the second half. So in actuality, the Browns were lucky to get out of there at 31-3, as bad as that looks. Roadman, I got so many negative thoughts flowing through my head that I can't even begin to describe them. So I will, as the Scottish Hammer does, punt them over to you. What are you thinking right now as you try to digest what we witnessed on Monday Night Football?
Well, it was a Monday night massacre is what it was. 31-3, and you're 100% accurate, DMan. It wasn't that close. They dominated, they being the 49ers, they dominated this game in every possible way. Coaching, head-to-head, offensive line, defensive line, secondary, running backs, quarterbacks, wide receivers, and I can't even name you. I watched the game, and I still don't know who their wide receivers are from San Francisco, but they played better than Antonio Callaway and Odell Beckham Jr., who, okay, we can get on Callaway for dropping that interception in the end zone, and that probably was the turning point in this game, because if he scores there, it's 14-10. Instead, it's a turnover. They go down. They score. It's 21-3. But he's coming off, a suspension of 4 games, and Freddie took some of the blame for maybe putting him in bad positions or too many positions to try and make plays in his first game back. But I expect maybe a drop or 2 from Antonio Callaway. I don't expect 2 drops from Odell Beckham Jr. and a fumble from Odell Beckham Jr. on that punt return. So this game was a disaster on national TV. The Browns embarrassed themselves. Baker Mayfield looked like Rex Ryan said he looked, locking on to one receiver and throwing interceptions, having trouble throwing over top of the defensive line. Nick Bosa dominated the line of scrimmage and did the flag plant. The flag plant, in honor of Baker's plant when he was playing for Oklahoma at Ohio State. So any way you want to describe this, D-Man, bottom line is that the Niners took the Browns out back and opened up a can of whoop ass.
I'm glad you mentioned Nick Bosa, who was all over our television screen here in Northeast Ohio, as he was all over the field at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California. Nick Bosa was unblockable. Yep. He was dominant no matter who was put in front of him. And he was feeling so good about himself after the game that he undressed the Bake Show. He undressed Baker Mayfield. You have to hear it to believe it. We're not going to play it over the podcast air, but you go to Twitter, you'll find it. Nick Bosa just destroys Mayfield in a manner that you typically don't see from NFL players against the other guy. It must be a long-held grudge that Nick Bosa has against Baker Mayfield. As you mentioned, he had the flag plant, the very demonstrative flag plant.
Right.
mock Mayfield for what he did at Ohio State when Mayfield was with Oklahoma. But Bosa just lays him out after the game. He was scared. He looked, lost back there. He couldn't believe that anybody thought that Mayfield could throw the ball over a few of their D linemen. He didn't mention himself, by the way. He was being selfless in that assessment. He said that he even mocked. He says, yeah, when I was coming in there, I was going, Baker, can't you give us more of a game? Like he was saying, he was yelling his name, and I'm just humiliating stuff coming from Bosa. And here's the thing. What do you do if you're the Cleveland Browns? You tell Nick Bosa he's not allowed to say that stuff? He just ran over you like a tractor. I mean, you had nothing for him. If he wants to mock you, he can mock you. And the bottom line is Baker Mayfield had another bad game. I mean, you can't go 8 for 22 for 100 yards with 2 picks and 4 sacks and a QBR that I believe is a career low of 4.2 or 4.6 on a scale of 1 to 100. He was in the 4s. That is horrendous, okay? And yes, the offensive line left a lot to be desired. But listen, Roadman, I'm so tired of that being a crutch when a quarterback doesn't play well. But the O-line. You give him an O-line, no. Yeah, the O-line was bad, but so was Baker Mayfield, okay? Antonio Callaway, he's got to somehow keep that ball from popping up out of his gloves at the goal line and being picked. However, Mayfield has got to make a better throw. It's got to be higher, and it can't be on Callaway's hip. It's got to be in front of him. So just because Callaway turned that into a bobble pick doesn't absolve Mayfield of the guilt. And, I mean, I'll take you back to the first possession. First play is, OBJ hitting Landry. I'm like, here we go. The fun has begun. 20-yard completion. Next play, Mayfield. Too high to OBJ. Too high. Yeah, they went off his gloves, but it was too high. Odell was wide open. And we've seen this from Mayfield time and again through 5 games. He's wild high. Now, as I said, in the case of Callaway, wild a little bit low. But he's been high too many times. And this is not the same quarterback that we saw in the second half of 2018.
DMan, here's what I'll say, okay? And you're right. Mayfield has not been as accurate as he was last year, not even close. However, you're talking about the greatest wide receiver in the history of the NFL who can catch footballs with no hands at all. He doesn't even need his hands. He's got to make both of those catches. Those are catches I expect him to make. If you get one hand on it, if you're Odell, if you get 2 hands on it, if you're Callaway, you should make that catch. And so for me, yes, the throws could have been better, but with the pressure he was facing, those are catchable balls. And I expected Callaway to catch that one on the goal line, and the 2 that Odell dropped, I expected him to catch those. But having said all of that, DMan, why were they not running the ball more? Last week against the Ravens, okay, what separated them in that game from the Ravens last week? The running game. What is the strength of the 49ers? The pass rush, right? Going with those 4, 5, 6 guys that get after the quarterback. Why not establish the run play off of that? Because I looked it up. I just went the first 4 possessions, D-Man, okay? And let's see. Chubb's first run of the game was a 2-yard run. They ran it 1 time on the first possession. Second possession, Baker throws the pick over the middle, which was a horrible throw, all on him. Third possession, Chubb 3-yard run, Baker Mayfield incomplete, Baker Mayfield sacked. So the first 3 possessions, you ran Nick Chubb 2 times. 2 times! Guy was at 3 touchdowns last week, 172. That's on Freddie Kitchens. Freddie Kitchens, again, got out-coached. Kyle Shanahan worked him over up and down inside. Freddie's first play had to be a reverse pass from OBJ to Jarvis Landry that went for 20 yards. All Kyle Shanahan did was turn, see where the weakness is, hand the ball off to his running back, who I still don't know who the hell this guy is, Breida or whatever, and he goes 83 yards for a touchdown. The coach got out coached, the quarterback got out quarterback, the running, the line, everybody from top to bottom just flat out stunk.
Well, and let me just go back to that pick you referenced by Bake, the second possession, the only play of that possession. I thought he was getting hit by Bosa as he delivered, and he had to move in the pocket a little bit, not absolving him 100%, but I'm saying I think there might have been some extenuating circumstances there. But here's the thing. I get what you're saying about Chubb, but the Browns will never go anywhere if their quarterback, their franchise quarterback, is 8 of 22 for 100 yards and 2 picks and 4 sacks. They're just not going. They're not going anywhere.
You can adjust that by running the ball to lessen the pressure, and you use play action, and then off of that you can run screen passes because they're going to try and pull back their ears and come after Baker Mayfield. I just thought Freddie Kitchens called a horrific game today, which contributed to horrific play by the offensive line and the quarterback and Odell Beckham Jr. And the don't even get me started on the defensive line. They gave up, 275 yards rushing tonight? Did I read that right? 275 yards on the ground by the San Francisco 40. And if I would have asked the average fan before, who are the running backs for the San Francisco 49ers before the game, wouldn't have been able to tell you who the hell they were, DMan. Nobody could have. I mean, come on. This was just a beatdown from top to bottom in the 31-3 loss.
And listen, Roadman, I said it in the WTAM 1100 post-game show that they were outcoached. Yes, there's no question the Browns were outcoached, but the players were so physically overmatched. You can't always say, and I know you're not doing this, you can't always say, well, it was just the scheme. If the schemes would have been better and the play calling would have been better, the Browns would have been fine. No, because even if the play calling had been good, and even if the preparation had been good, they're still going to get beat based on the one-on-one matchups that we saw throughout the night, where the 49ers just took it to the Browns physically. How many times, when the Niners were on offense, did one of their players catch a ball or run a ball, smash into a Brown, and drag that Brown 3 or 4 yards beyond the line beyond the first down marker? How many times did you have to see that? They were physically overmatched. One team was doing whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, blasting you in the mouth, and you're not doing a thing because you can't do a thing because you're not physically up to the challenge. And you say, well, okay, how does Dennis Manoloff, who's doing a podcast, he's never played an NFL game in his life, make that statement? Because I'm not judging them based on how they would play against me. I would be destroyed on an NFL field by any member of the Cleveland Browns in 1 second. That is established. That is not for debate. I only criticize based on their peers. That I've said this over and over and over again. So I want to save the critics who say, oh, here's Dennis, he thinks he can do better. No, I couldn't. But I'll tell you what, if you're a professional football team and you go to San Francisco and you put your helmet on and your pads on and your spikes on and everything else on and your watch and whatever else, your visor, and you go out there and put up a stink bomb like that, you deserve to be criticized. You deserve to be thrown in the trash. You deserve to have the other team mocking you because that's what happened. And I don't want to hear this. One of the things I'm reading on Twitter, it's driving me nuts. Oh, here come the overreactions. Here come the overreactions. No, as I said to Chase before the show, this is not an overreaction. We are reacting to one game.
Yes.
A stink bomb. We are not saying the season is over. We are not talking about the soft part of the schedule supposedly coming up. We're not even talking about the game against Seattle this upcoming week, this upcoming Sunday. We're talking about one game, the game against the 49ers. And that game was a disgrace for the Cleveland Browns. That is not an overreaction. That is a cold, hard fact. It's not an opinion. It's a fact. They were destroyed. They should be embarrassed. Now, I had some texters on the radio show say, well, the check's clear. They're not worried about embarrassment. You know what? That might be true. Maybe these players aren't embarrassed. You know what? I wonder aloud, this is a pet peeve of mine. After you get destroyed, why in the world in an NFL setting are you going out onto the field and you're yucking it up, shaking hands, slapping backs, posing for pictures, swapping jerseys with the guys that just beat your brains in? Why in the world would you do that? I've never been a professional athlete, so I can't speak to that environment. But I think if I were an athlete and I just got punked 31-3 on national television, the last place I want to be is out on the field after the game, yucking it up with the guys who crushed me. I want to be, if I want to see them so bad, I'm going to go into my locker room. I'm going to shower and shave. I'm going to get dressed. I'm going to hustle out of my locker room. I'm going to go to their locker room and ask their locker room attendant, hey, can you go get me player X so I can shake his hand? Out of sight. I don't want to see the team that was destroyed having fun on a field after the game when you got drilled. Is that too much to ask? Oh, but the check's clear. They don't care. The check's clear. Well, they should care, right?
DMan, that's today's athlete, though. They're not like us from back in the day. I'm with you. When I lost and I can only speak to this level, high school basketball. When I lost a high school basketball game, my parents knew not to talk to me for a day, just to leave me alone because I didn't want to talk to anybody. And I'm like you. I'll shake, I'll walk through the line, shake your hand, and I'm going to the locker room. I'm not going to sit there and talk. It's a different generation.
Wait a minute, Roadman. Hold on. I love you, Roadman, but let me just jump in here. In Major League Baseball, during the regular season, do you ever see the losing team come out of the dugout and shake hands with the winning team on the pitcher's mound? No, you do not. In the NHL, during the regular season, do you ever see the losing team go out and shake the hands of the winning team? No, you do not. In the NBA, yes, occasionally you see a player go over and slap five or do jersey exchanges. LeBron's famous for it, we know that. But a lot of the guys will just wave and walk off the court. Why is it in the NFL that they feel like they have to get together on the field after the game?
Here's why.
Why is that?
D-man, because
it's not just generational.
No, they only play each other one time a year. Unless you're in the division, it's 2 times a year. And you don't play every team every year. So, and I'm just thinking out loud on this because I'm with you. I'm going to the locker room and I'm, calming down, going over what, and then maybe I go say hi to someone. I'm with you on that. I get it. But that's the NFL. They don't get the opportunity on a regular basis to do that. It's one game a week. It's one time a year with most teams. Okay. So I think that the generation that we're talking about today, it wasn't that way when Bradshaw and Bernie were playing. Joe Turkey Jones is body slamming Bradshaw. He's not going up to him after the game and asking for his jersey. He wishes he could body slam him again. So it's a change in the times. And the NFL, like I said, there's only 16 games versus 82 in the NBA and 162 in Major League Baseball.
All right. Well, thanks for indulging me on that sidebar. As I said, it's my personal pet peeve. I get people who tell me I'm crazy and why do you obsess over it? It just rubs me the wrong way. Well, I mean, Chase, you've got a point.
Yeah. So I think with baseball, hockey, basketball, those sports are way more personal. You can see the players' faces. And I think one of the reasons why players take their helmets off and go to midfield is just to get some face time, get some of that personal, that's who Damaris Randall looks like, or hey, that's whatever.
You're making too much sense, Chase. But listen, though, my point has always been this about the NFL. Talk to them in the concourse after the game. If you really want to see a player on the other team that badly, just hang out in front of their locker room in the hallway. Ask one of the attendants or one of the security guards to go fetch your guy and talk to him out of sight, out of camera range.
Well, and to your point, D-Man, a couple times last year, there were some fights back in the hallways of NBA arenas. Players took it back there. I mean, so that's not uncommon even then.
Yeah,
so
I get it.
I don't know.
And listen, here's the thing. Chase makes the point. It didn't win or lose the game for the Browns today, obviously. I mean, the game was over by the time this stuff unfolded. It just boggles my mind. But let's get back to the game. Thanks for indulging me on that little sidebar. All right, so I'm looking through the tweets as the Browns are getting trucked. And I go to a tweet of a guy that I really respect, former NFL player Brian Baldinger, who's also an NFL analyst, does a phenomenal job for NFL Network. Baldy, and I'm quoting his tweet, Browns, are there go-to plays to OBJ? Is he on the Browns? What's the purpose of acquiring this wide receiver? You know what, Roadman? Baldy, as usual, has a point because I did the math. I looked it up on my show tonight. In his last 3 games, Odell Beckham Jr. has a combined 10 catches for 103 yards and 0 touchdowns. 10 for 103 and 0 TDs in 3 games. That includes 2 for 20 last week as a decoy in a win, but 2 for 27 and no touchdowns this week. Almost had more passing yards than receiving yards. You cannot have this type of output from Odell Beckham Jr. And one of the things I've noticed is pretty glaring, and other people have, both the callers to the show, the texters, and the tweets. Where in the world is the slant game with the Cleveland Browns? Where did that go? I don't know. Odell Beckham Jr., I think, was a pretty darn good player at catching a 5-yard slant and going to the house. He basically did that against the Jets. Why are they not running this 3, 4, 5 times a game to Odell Beckham Jr.? I don't understand it. And I don't want to hear, oh, he's double teamed. He's double teamed. He's double teamed. All the great receivers are double teamed. All of them. But they get their numbers. Guess who was double teamed before this season and got his numbers? Odell Beckham Jr. So what are the Browns doing, or more to the point, not doing with Odell Beckham Jr.?
That's on the head coach, who happens to be your offensive coordinator calling the plays, Freddie Kitchens. That's who it falls on. And I thought Freddie went out of his way to try and get Odell involved early with the pass, with the reverse, throwing to him early on the sideline. They tried to get, maybe they tried too much to get him involved early and ignored the straw that stirs the drink, in my opinion, on this offense. Nick Chubb established a run, and that will open up the pass. I think that's what we're seeing with this football team because of the double teams. And is Baker not reading the defenses right? Is he thinking it's man and they're playing zone? Is he thinking it's zone and they're playing man, and he's unable to read the defenses? We knew this was going to come this year. Once there's film established with every player in the league, teams adjust to it. And now this comes down, I think, to Freddie and Baker adjusting to what teams are doing to them and taking away from them. So, again, I'll go back to Freddie Kitchens. He's the guy that's trying to get OBJ involved, and he's doing a poor job of it. And Baker is struggling as well. So, for me, it starts at the top, and the two guys that get a lot of glory when they win, but should get a lot of the blame when they lose, is the head coach, who happens to be your OC, and the quarterback, who happens to be Baker Mayfield. That's where I think the problem is.
And Roadman, I should have said this at the top of the show, but I'll say it now. I don't want to hear again how much talent the Cleveland Browns have. No more. I don't want to hear it until they make the playoffs. Because throughout the endless NFL offseason, all I heard was, oh, this talent. Oh, the Browns' talent. Oh, my gosh. They've got talent everywhere. And you know what? I bought the hype. I bought in, as I usually do. I was overly optimistic about the Browns in the summer, like I usually am. But this year especially, because, Dennis, don't you understand how much talent is on this roster? There's not a weak position group everywhere you look. In fact, the two position groups that we think might be weaknesses were kicker and punter. And guess what? They haven't been. So look at all that talent. I don't want to hear about the talent on this roster, because when you fail to match up both schematically and physically, like the Browns did tonight, and like they did against the Tennessee Titans in week 1, you should not be talking about, and I know they don't necessarily, but people should not be talking about how much talent the Browns have. Show me consistent winning. Show me playoffs before you talk about the talent on this roster again. Because your talented players, with some exceptions here and there, are not really performing to their quote unquote talent level. And when you get physically beaten down on both sides of the ball at the point of attack, it doesn't matter what talent you have. Witness, I give you the San Francisco defensive front. The San Francisco defensive front was saying, we're going to do whatever we want to do. We are going to be in the backfield on every play. Bosa's leading the way, but we got other guys who can get their paws up. And you heard Bosa run his junk after the game, saying he didn't think Mayfield could see over a couple of the linemen. So when you're physically superior to another team, it neutralizes the so-called talent that you have on your team. And by the way, the Niners say they've got talent on their roster. Every NFL team claims it has talent, except for the 2019 Dolphins and the 2019 Jets signed Sam Darnold, or the Redskins, or maybe a few other teams. But almost every team can say we have talented players all over the place. I'm tired of hearing it where the Browns are concerned, because you know what? You are what your record says you are. You're 2-3 if you're the Browns. That's a .400 winning percentage. One of your 2 victories was a powder puff cupcake walkover, pin the tail on the donkey over the hapless Jets. And the other win was a quality win against the Ravens on the road. So you've got 1 quality win in 5 attempts. I don't want to hear about all the talent that you possess.
DMan, here's what I will say in looking at this team at 2-3. I still don't know who they are just yet. Their identity, their philosophy, I think they're still trying to figure that out. And here's the good thing for the Browns. They play in a terrible division. The Bengals might be the worst team in the NFL. The Steelers think they're on their 3rd-string quarterback, and Paxton Lynch is going to be their backup, okay? The Ravens, they're fool's gold, man. Lamar Jackson, he can't beat you throwing the football. Yeah, they're in first place for now because they haven't beaten anybody. They beat the Steelers, the Cardinals, and the Miami Dolphins. That's it. So if the Browns can navigate their way through these first 8 games and come out of it at 500, at 4-4, then they get to do what the Ravens got to do early on, and that's face the cupcake portion of their schedule in the second half. The Browns are still going to win this division because that talent you don't want to hear any more about, it's eventually going to come through, D-Man, if it stays healthy. They're going to figure it out enough to win the division. Now, will that matter? That's the question. Will winning a bad division matter? We just saw the Minnesota Twins, who won a bad division in Major League Baseball, get swept by the New York Yankees 3-0. So, yay, they won the AL Central, but they got swept like the Indians did last year. The same division last year got swept in the first round. So winning the AFC North, I don't know if that will mean much come playoff time because of how bad it is. But if you're the Browns, those are the baby steps you're looking for, going from 0-16 to 7-8-1 to preferably 10-6, 9-7, and winning a division. I still think they will win this division, D-Man.
Roadman, I have so much respect for you. I've had so much respect for you for many, many, many years. I love teaming with you on the Next Man Up podcast, but honestly, respectfully, I do not want to hear it. I don't want to hear about the Browns potentially winning the division in a weak division and
It's
all
the
that other
truth.
crap.
Well,
you know what? No.
It's a terrible
We can
division.
have that talk on another day. But I'm not going to sit here and entertain a Browns. Well, everything will be fine when they're 2-3. They have one signature victory in 5 attempts.
That's
They've been
more than the
blown out
Ravens have.
twice. Oh, my goodness. Roadman.
More than the Ravens had. D-Man, don't get me wrong. This was a disaster tonight.
This was a
but
disaster.
Overall at everything, okay? And this division is there for the Browns to win. It is. That's the fool's gold. Baltimore Steelers are awful, and the Ravens they're going to battle for the worst record in the league. And you get to play the Bengals twice, which you haven't played yet, right? You get to play the Steelers twice. That's 4 games right there. Worst case scenario, you're 3-1 in those 4 games, and then you play the Ravens one more time, and you already whooped up on them in their stadium, 40-25 or whatever the score was.
Those who are listening to our podcast can't see me, but I'm going la 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 with my hands over my ears.
Yeah, well,
no more. Can't do it, Roadman. Cannot do it tonight, man.
And you're entitled to that. Tonight they were terrible, but I don't expect this to continue with the Browns on a consistent.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on, Roadman. We got to go at it a little bit here tonight, even though we respect each other.
Sure.
What makes you think that Mayfield and OBJ are suddenly going to come out of whatever it is they're in? How can you be so sure?
I am not 100% sure, but I feel that as the schedule weakens and the secondaries weaken, they're not going to be able to cover Odell Beckham Jr., as we've seen Richard Sherman and the Niners do tonight, Humphrey and the Ravens, did last week, and they still won the game, okay? I look at this offense as a work in progress with a new wide receiver who demands a lot of attention from everywhere, from opposing defenses, from his own offense, in the locker room, the NFL front office, and all that. I love what Jarvis Landry's done to this point, right? He's just blended in seamlessly and accepted whatever his role is. I think once they figure out what I've been telling you tonight, that the identity of this offense is running the football, even though they have those weapons for throwing the football, I think that will help this offense establish itself, become more consistent, and take some of the pressure off Baker Mayfield, because we saw tonight when they went to Baker to try and win it all with that offensive line, which is average at best, and I'm being kind. Did you see Joel Bitonio get dump trucked about 4 times tonight? Did you see Greg Robinson get beat off the edge by Nick Bosa 3 or 4 times tonight? So it's something I think eventually that will come together when they figure out what their philosophy, what their identity is. They're trying to do too much with the new pieces that they're trying to put in place right now.
I just think it's a sad state of affairs when you use the bad division. Not you, I'm just saying when people use a bad division as a buffer, as a comfort zone, as a safety valve to say, well, you know what, we're crappy now, but the bad division will bail us out. The soft schedule will bail us out. Here's what I want to ask you, though.
All right.
Whatever happened to, remember during the offseason, as I say, the endless NFL offseason when everybody was lining up with their nicknames for the Browns front, including me.
I did too.
Lakefront and all this Rushman and all these names that whatever happened to the collection of Miles and Vernon and Richardson and the Ogunjobis? Whatever happened to this group that was going to wreak havoc on the league? Okay, because with the Browns so far this season, you see an individual every once in a while have a heck of a play, but you don't see the D-line dominance like you saw from the Niners tonight. When is this going to happen? And by the way, this is down my list of criticisms, because my criticisms of the Browns right now through 5 games primarily are offensive and coaching and scheme. But I do wonder, when are we going to see this dominant defensive line that we were told is going to terrorize opposing O-lines?
I'm waiting to see it as well, D-Man. And I've stuck up for Myles Garrett. My partner JT on the Kenny and JT show on WHBC has been calling him out for the last 2 years. And he had a sack tonight, but did it mean anything at the time? No, not really. Has he made any other plays besides the 7 sacks that he's had? No. Did they get run on for 275 yards by a bunch of no-name running backs? Yes. So I understand where you're coming from there. This line that was supposed to be one of the best in the NFL, and I dubbed it that as well. I think the cold front or whatever I was calling them. Well, they're the no front right now because they're not showing up and doing their job consistently. And teams tonight that watched this game, they're going to try and do what San Francisco did, and that's run the ball right at these guys and establish the run and throw off of that. And so you're right. This defensive line, for being the so-called strength and the money spent on it, D-Man, to this point, they've been disappointing because they've been inconsistent.
Yes, Roadman, and we don't need to do a play-by-play minutia on games, but I do want to take you to a sequence in the third quarter. Well, they're not right in a row, but there were 3 plays in the third quarter from the 49ers. Their second possession. By now it was 28-3. 3rd and 8 inside the 49ers 10. Garoppolo dumped the Kittles. He drags Whitehead about 4 yards beyond the first down marker. Basic pass. Kittle just dominates his guy. Next play, Tavon Coleman, nice run to the left. Later in the possession, another 3rd down, 3rd and 5 at the 49ers 37. Little dump to Kittle on the left side. He runs over TJ Carey. Schobert overruns him, and he just bulls his way to another first down. Later in the possession, 2nd and 10, Juszczyk, before he obviously was exited because of injury. Wide open screen to the right, blows through Whitehead, first down. Way too many instances of the 49ers just bullying, and eventually clowning the Browns, and they weren't even trying to clown them. They were up so big, they were just trying to back off, but they couldn't help themselves. The Browns continue to create, goofy plays, and Beckham puts the ball on the ground and his return and all that. So I wanted to mention those 3, but I also wanted to ask you about this one that brought some criticism from Booger McFarland on the ESPN telecast. Browns, late third quarter, down 28-3, incomplete to Landry, incomplete to Ratley, incomplete to somebody. 4th and 10 at the Cleveland 45. Punt. Booger McFarland says, "Why are you punting?" And you know what? I was saying the same thing. What are you punting for? You're down 28-3. And you're at the 45, your own 45, but still, you're near midfield. What is the point of punting in that situation? Late third quarter, down 28-3.
I'll tell you what it is, and I disagree with it. I'm with you. I'm with Booger. I don't want to get embarrassed worse than I already am getting embarrassed on the scoreboard, because if they come up empty, it's a short field, they go down, score a touchdown, and the score looks worse on national TV. That's what that was right there. I disagree with the call there by Freddie Kitchens. I'm with you. So if you lose 31-3, 38-3, 45-3, it's still one loss, and you were embarrassed no matter what the final score was. So I agree with Booger there. I don't understand why Freddie just didn't try and go for it right there and create some type of momentum. And again, if you don't get it, so be it. And you give up another touchdown. Who cares if you lose by 31, 28, 45? A loss is a loss.
All right, Roadman, we wrap it up because it is a late night, and Chase and you have to get up early. I do not, so I can't be greedy here and just keep us around for another 4 hours. Nor would we want to continue to rehash the monstrosity that unfolded on the TV in Northeast Ohio and at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California. Niners 31, Browns 3. My final statement is this. No one is saying the season is over, certainly not I. No one is saying that, as you pointed out earlier, and much to my consternation, that the Browns can't win the division. They can't realize their goals. This, the sky has not fallen on the likes of Kitchens and Mayfield and Beckham and whoever else. But you got to be better than what the Browns have shown. You do. I know there's a soft end of the schedule potentially and all that stuff, but you can't, in my opinion, be lugging around a 400 winning percentage through 5 games. You can't have one signature win out of 5. One of your 2 victories against the hapless Jets when Darnold's not there. You can't play this kind of football and fool yourselves for too long. You can't, and you shouldn't be sitting there going, well, once we get done with this stretch, which includes, the Niners and included the Ravens and included the Rams and will include Russ Buss's Seattle Seahawks and then Belichick, then we'll be fine. I don't like that mentality because that is the flip the switch mentality that we have seen not work in other Cleveland sports when the money's on the line. They need to be playing better, even if it is against quality competition. It's one thing to lose. It's another to be embarrassed. It's another to lose your dignity while you are losing. And that's what we've seen already twice in 5 games this year. And that's why I'm saying I'm not burying the Browns. Don't come at me when the Browns are good at the end of the year and say, we told you so, we told you so. I call it as I see it on a weekly basis. And right now, after week 5, I didn't like what I saw in week 5 at all. And then when I look at the 5-week composite, I don't like that. So I'm not feeling good about the Cleveland Browns right now. That's my my final statement.
Tonight was an embarrassment on national TV. There's no way around that, DMan. And I'm not going to exonerate them and just say, oh, this didn't matter. Hopefully, and again, you shouldn't need more than one wake-up call in a season, but the opening game against Tennessee, you would hope that was, passed as the wake-up call and you respond from that. Well, maybe this one on national TV Monday night against the Niners, maybe they were feeling, too good about themselves after the Ravens game and thought they had arrived. And this showed them they have not. They have a lot of work to do. It doesn't get easier this week as they take on Seattle on a short week. There was talk about that maybe being flexed. That ain't happening now after getting embarrassed on national TV. They ain't flexing that from a 1 to
Roadman, these are the kind of games that get you banned from national TV.
Exactly. So let's see what they do. When I put the schedule out there and looked at it and did the schedule game, DMan, I had them 4-4 after 8. They're 2-3 after 5. Do they need to get more consistent and create their identity in offense, which I think is the run game? Yes, but they still can get to 4-4, and then that weak portion of the schedule kicks in. But they need to figure this thing out on offense because that's where the strength is supposed to be with all the talent they added in the offseason with Baker in his second year under the guy that he loves so much that they hired him as the head coach in Freddie Kitchens. So this was just an unmitigated disaster, a massacre. It's got to get turned around quickly. But the good news tonight, DMan, and I'm surprised you haven't brought this up, the Cavaliers opened their preseason tonight with a 120-89 win over San Lorenzo of Argentina, baby. Darius Garland coming off the bench tonight for the Wine and Gold with 9 points and that 30th pick in the first round, Kevin Porter Jr., 16 points off the bench. Look out. Because of Monday Night Football, everybody forgot about the Cavs, but the Roadman, I remembered, and here come the Wine and Gold. D-Man.
All right, well, you baited me into a final statement, which is, why am I grinding so hard about the Browns when, as you say, Roadman, things could very well turn for the better down the stretch and in the second half? I'm grinding because I don't want to see this season slip away where it can't be recovered, even with a soft schedule on the back half. One of the reasons I don't want to see it slip away is I know that the pickings are slim between now and, I don't know, March when the Indians start up again, because the Indians are not in the playoffs. The Cavaliers are going to be young and hungry under John Beeline, who's learning on the job as an NBA head coach. They'll be plucky for a couple of quarters, and then the good to average NFL or NBA teams will truck them in the second half, presumably. It's going to be a long year as part of the rebuild for the Cavs. So I'm desperate to make sure that the Browns don't lose us in the fall. That's why I want it so bad for Browns fans. I don't want to see many more of these games, if any, because the Browns are the hope for the next couple of months. Otherwise, what are you looking forward to? You look forward to the Indian spring training next year. You hope that is off of an actual productive offseason as opposed to last season. So anyway,
hey, D-Man, real quick. I just saw something. I'm looking at my other computer here. All right. We saw Nick Bosa do the pretend flag plant after the one sack or the intentional grounding or whatever that play was. Remember that in the game, right? Yes. After the game, he went back out on the field, got an actual 49ers flag, and did the actual flag plant on the field at Levi Stadium or whatever it was. So he was running his mouth at his locker after the game, but he also was out on the field planting an actual flag.
Wait, you're telling me he went out after he presumably the media scrum?
I don't know if it was before he went into the locker room to do the media scrum and he did it on his way to the locker room, or after the media scrum, but I just saw a video somewhere on Twitter or whatever of him actually planting a 49ers flag out there. So
you know what, Nick, who am I to tell you this because you dominated the game, but that's actually superfluous. That's kind of weak sauce to me.
You know who will love it? Browns fans are going to hate it, but Buckeye fan is going to love it. You know, they're going to get a charge out. Here's my thing for either side of it. You don't want Baker planting the flag at Ohio Stadium? Don't let him beat you at home. You don't want Nick Bosa, pretend planting the flag or doing it.
No, but that's my point, Roadman. I'm okay with the pretend flag. I just think it's overkill to go back out there. Well, what is this? You're a professional now. Have your fun on the field. Go ahead and mock Mayfield. Talk your junk. But why do you have to physically actually plant a flag on top of all that? It just seems to me to be excess.
Yeah, but no different than Baker Mayfield ignoring, Hugh Jackson's handshake, right? When he was at Cincinnati.
Fair is fair.
Yeah, those two, the Bosas like to talk a little bit. Baker likes to talk, so that's part of the game. You don't want to see any of this. Stop
Maybe Nick Bosa is good buddies with Hugh Jackson, and we just don't know it. But, it was a tough one. So thank you, Roadman, for taking the time. Thank you, producer, director, extraordinaire Chase, for handling this. And, this is the end of the latest episode of the Next Man Up podcast, and we can't wait till you listen.